Alright, legends, welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews. We're getting into the X-Men, the original 90s X-Men cartoon, with a little chat about the episode Days of Future Past, Part 1. Now, if your introduction to Days of Future Past was the live-action movie, it's very, very different from this story and the animated show. And this is a great episode. This two-parter is fantastic. We begin the episode in the year 2055 in the future. We see the Statue of Liberty destroyed, essentially, a big chunk missing out of the side of it, smoke pouring from it, sentinels flying in the sky. As we pan over the city, you see just complete devastation everywhere you look. There's a few mutants trying to find cover, one of which is Wolverine, and clearly aged, grey hair, wrinkles in his face, the whole 9 yards. Yes, they're trying to escape sentinels, and he has a mission to get to, but before he can get to this mission, they're attacked by sentinels. They fight them off reasonably easy. The Wolverine does kind of complain that, it used to be I could take these guys out in half the time, I must be getting rusty. At this point, another mutant called Bishop shows up and starts fighting with the three of them. Swiftly enough overcomes them and takes them prisoner. So it turns out he's actually working for the Sentinels in the future, routing up renegade mutants for them. He has them chained up in this flying car sort of a deal that he's got going. Wolverine wakes up trying to talk about sense into him. He's like, you know what, these sentinels, you need to really, just think where you're at. They're programmed to kill all mutants at some point. So we don't know exactly what the course of time did in this episode. We do get a little bit of a flashback later on where you see the Sentinel program starting up and then eventually turning on the humans as well. But yeah, they've obviously in the future recruited some mutants to hunt down all our mutants. So whenever Bishop takes Wolverine and these other two mutants to an extermination centre, shows his ID and whatnot, the Sentinels turn on him, saying that he's no longer needed. So he's got no other option at this point but to join the fight with Wolverine and these other mutants to stop the Sentinels. So while these two mutants is taking on the Sentinels, they tell Wolverine to get out of there, complete his mission, and Bishop goes with him. So he gets to this room or this building where there's a time streaming device, and I'm just looking up to see who it was in there. The name jumped out at me watching it there, but yeah. The other thing, whenever they were taken to the mutant extermination centre, you seen gravestones for Cyclops and Storm, Jean Grey, and I think maybe Rogue was there as well. Jubilee was definitely there. But yeah, so they get off to this place. Forge is the guy that's there waiting for them. Wolverine's got this little canister with him that is like the fuel, more or less, for this time streaming device. Whenever they're trying to send Wolverine back to the past, they're attacked by Nimrod, a futuristic, unstoppable Sentinel, essentially. Well, top of the range Sentinel. Not so much unstoppable. We see that later on in the episode, but it attacks. Very, very successful kill rate, let's just say. We do see that in episode 2. And something that jumped out to me while I was watching this one, just had her, like, whenever this episode or this series first aired, I think my second year in high school. at the time. So there is a visual in the next episode, part 2, that really jumped out at me. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Anyway, during this confrontation, the decision is made that instead of Wolverine going back, Bishop going back in his place, just due to his youth and strength, be a higher chance of success in this mission. They've determined that there was an assassination attempt, which is, fairly close to the movie storyline when you think about it, that happened back in the 90s, that will stop this future that they're now in. So he jumps into the time streaming device while Wolverine and Forge try to take on Nimrod, and they're taken out fairly easily. When Nimrod goes for Bishop in the time streaming device, he disappears, goes back in time. When he first arrives, the city's in that bad a condition. He thinks that the time travel device didn't work, but he sees kids playing in the street, and he's kind of, commenting to himself, what's going on here? There's children out playing ball in the streets in the daytime. This isn't right. So, as per usual, in time travel stories of that time, he comes across a newspaper. And what is a newspaper, you might add? That's just something that used to be outside of your iPhone that was made of paper and had news on it. So he realises he's back in the early 90s, and the time travel machine did work, but he can't remember why he's there. The time travel experience that he's had has left him with no clear memory of why he's come back, what his mission is. The only thing he has in his wrist is this thing that's keeping him there in the time period. If it gets destroyed or something happens that it breaks, he'll get transported instantly back to his own time. But it also has info in there on the time period and the targets and whatnot. So the only thing that they're just really showing him is the X-Men of the time, the legendary group that everybody was praising in the future, that are now dead in his time, are still very much alive in this time. But he deduces that the target that he's after here is the X-Men themselves. So he hijacks a bus, heads off to the mansion, attacks them, and after a fight where he's very easily taken down the X-Men, he takes down Storm, Cyclops, Jubilee comes out, has a go at him, and eventually Wolverine shows up, attacks him, and at one point during the fight he calls him Rookie, and at the beginning of the episode the older Wolverine also called him Rookie, so this kind of calms him down a little bit, and is like, Wolverine, stop, it's me, sort of a thing. And eventually he gets taken out and tied up, and they're going to use Cerebro to look into his mind, what's going on here. So Professor X gets in there to try and read his mind and sees visions of the future. So he also determines that the X-Men are in some way responsible for the future, and that they've failed completely. The only other thing in this episode that did happen was we got a little bit of an update on Beast. He's still behind bars in the storyline of the entire season, awaiting trial. There's a thing going on with him and Professor X that are trying to show humanity that mutants aren't dangerous. They're just different, and the way they look at it, if they can successfully go to trial with Beast for what he's been lifted for, and won that case, it'll look better for the mutants in the long run. So Rogue and Gambit were off to visit him, and they're having a little bit of a chat. Rogue brought him a book and whatnot, but he's like, Gambit also says, why the heck are you in here? And Beast is just like, I have to see this through, my way. But Gambit is clearly not comfortable with the whole jail cell thing. So you kind of get a bit of his background there, just sort of mentioned, Rogue was kind of questioning, what's up with him. And Beast is like, obviously Gambit has some past sins that he has yet to deal with, sort of a deal. So jumping back to the end of the episode, whenever Professor X has read the mind of Bishop and seen the future, determined the X-Men are responsible in some way, shape or form, they release him. And at this point, Rogue shows up and like, yeah, we've got company, how are you doing, sort of a thing. At which point Gambit walks in and Bishop loses it when he sees Gambit and says, you, points him out directly, you're the reason I'm here and your future ends now. And he pulls his gun on him and we cut at the end of the episode. Great little episode here. It's like, I remember watching this first time round and just been completely blown away by what I was seeing, because the X-Men series was one of the first, to my mind and my recollection, that wasn't a show that had a standalone story every episode. It had an overarching storyline throughout the whole thing, and it kind of branches off once in a while. But Days of Future Past, beginning in the future, the year 2055, was, unexpected. And great little episode. And again, there's a visual in the next episode that I have not ever been able to shake since I've seen it back in the 90s whenever it first aired. Fantastic episode. Like, it's like, obviously animated show, was shown in the afternoons here in the UK as part of the kids programming of the time. But it was a lot of the nature of the X-Men series was fairly grown up for a lot of the stuff that we were watching as kids at the time. And the next episode just had that one visual in it. We were like, my goodness, I can't believe we're seeing this. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Loving this rewatch of the X-Men, having a great time of it. I wish I could get more time to do these more regular. I'm going to try my best to do that moving forward here, because there's a lot of stuff that I want to get done on this channel. I've been saying it for years. It's time now to actually get it done. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 45 right now. In about a fortnight's time, as you get older, time seems to go by a lot quicker. I'm starting to kind of feel that there now. So it feels like, in a fortnight I'd probably be dead. But so let's get as many reviews and chats about classic TV shows and movies and whatnot done as we can on this channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, turn on those bell notifications to get notified when I upload, and please share this stuff along to anybody you think might be interested in it. That's going to do it, guys. Until the next episode, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all then.